How fast can I... What's that? Ninjan just made the same video. What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another Toast Hammer. Now, I've never thought myself a fast painter, but there's a week until my very first Warhammer tournament, and I still have 10 Skitarii that need to get painted. So let's put it to the test. Now, these are 10 models that I've painted plenty of before. I know the recipe for their scheme. I know the process. I have it pretty down pat. But can I get them done in time? I was estimating that it would take about 30 minutes per model to finish a 10-man squad, which would be roughly 300 minutes or 5 hours. Let's see how I did. To start off, I began by selecting the points of the model that would either be black or silver. This is kind of following the inside-out painting style that I did with the goblins and have used before with my Skitarii to pretty good effect. I thought I would be able to save time later by not needing to touch up those areas, as it's much harder to touch up things around black than it is to touch up things after you paint black. However, I did absolutely forget how freaking detailed these models were, and this was an absolute slog. This entire process might have been the single longest thing that I had to do, and it being the very first step absolutely wiped my energy. I was not used to painting this many models in a row. I typically only max out at about 5 per painting session. So this really wiped me out and was the only progress I got done for the entire day. Not only that, but we're already about halfway through the 5-hour prediction. So things weren't looking too bright. Without further ado, the next step was to pick out the metallics, specifically all of the silver bits. There are no gold except for the bases, but we're doing the bases last, so we're doing all of the silver bits. This went a little bit faster than undercoating all of the black parts, but it still took quite a bit of time to do and ended up also being one of the more time-consuming steps. Not a lot of fun here either, just really time-consuming, detailed work. More time lost, but I decided to keep going on with another painting session later that day. I do take frequent breaks throughout my painting because, well, I just can't pay that much attention. But we pushed onward. I turned on the latest episode of Dimension 20, Ravening War, and got to work on painting their cloaks, first with a solid coat of Stonewall Gray. This is just one coat. It would be covered up multiple times later in later passes. I thin it a little bit, but not too much. We don't care too much about streakiness or anything on these models because, again, it will be largely covered up in later passes. Uneven coverage, that's fine. We consider it free weathering in this house. We'll persevere. And then the next step after that was the inside of the cloaks, which is one of the most personally frustrating parts to paint on these models. And it, again, just took more careful time getting all of these inside cloak portions painted. Still not really getting to any of the fun parts yet, but we are getting to slowly less and less intricate portions of painting. After the cloaks were based with Fuego Orange, I turned my attention to our first and only highlight layer, which is on the cloaks themselves, mixing a 1-to-1 mixture of Stonewall Gray and Bone White to create a much lighter gray, kind of edging more towards the white end of the spectrum, covering most of the cloaks and some of the armor portions as well, taking a little bit of care to make sure our coverage is a little bit more even on this pass, and ensuring that things look nice a little bit more. However, this is where the pace started to pick up a little bit. I was getting some momentum going. I could start to see the light at the end of the tunnel, and I knew there wasn't a whole ton of modeling left. After that was the fine line and details stage. We are omitting some steps that I usually take here, like doing the trim of their armor. We don't have the time for that. So I just went forward with coloring the purity seals with an off-white and a burgundy red color, and then getting out my secret weapon, the Sakura Micron pens, which I use for all of my purity seal writing, as I feel like it gives me a lot more control, even as opposed to a fine-tipped brush. I also use the pens to jot out their geared pattern on the hem of their cloaks, as again, I find that personally I have a lot more control with this method as opposed to trying to wrangle a brush tip into these more mechanically designed positions. With all of that said and done, it got to be my favorite portion of the miniature painting process. That's right, it's time for some streaking grime. I slathered these models up, and by the time I was done with the 10th model, I was ready to start removing it from the first. Taking some cotton daubs and makeup removers and gently removing the streaking grime from most places after dipping it in mineral spirits, I was able to use it as a nice all-over wash to really tie in all the colors together and really unify the piece, as well as hiding some more of the mistakes that I had made earlier. This was a big time-saving step, but it also cost me some time because it would take at least a day for that streaking grime to fully cure before we could move on to the next steps. After a day of rest, I knew I was at the finish line. All in all, only a few days were spent on this project, but I was already far past my predicted time. So let's try and finish this up as soon as we can. I got to start on the bases next, bringing in a mix of 1 part black, 1 part blue, and 3 parts gray in order to mix up a more desaturated, darker base tone for my off blue, kind of steel blue base color. Slathering that all over the bases, not really worrying if I splash a little bit on a foot here or there, because that would be intentionally applied in the next step, which was dry brushing. I would apply the dry brush all over the base evenly and then upon the cloaks and feet of the models in order to physically tie them to the world that they were standing upon. At this point, during the basing process, I also brought in some of the assassin kit bashes I had worked on, as I needed one of those for the tournament anyway, and I felt like I had enough time to at least get that one finished. After the basing was complete with a metallic gold finish, picking out all of the stones and little pieces of rubble that I would put on the base in the form of slate rocks, I was able to do the OSL. I kept it really simple for the Rangers, just getting the lenses on their backpack and the lenses of their eyes. First with a coat of Pro-Acryl Titanium White. I highly recommend this white paint. It covers great, it thins well, and is just a really nice foundation for a solid white color, which is exactly what you want when you're dealing with lighting effects. I then picked up the trusty fluorescent orange and daubed it into all of those prepared spots, taking a little bit to put dots here and there under their gas masks to simulate the light projecting from their eye lenses. And then also covering the special weapon with the energy color as well. I also spent a little bit more time on the assassin model, making sure it had some decent OSL effects. As a kit bash character, I wanted to make sure it definitely hit a little bit different on the battlefield. At this point, there was only one thing left to do. Grabbing my black paint and a slightly thicker, flatter paintbrush, I did basically one solid streak around with black to clean up the edges of the base, and make sure everything was nice and presentable. And if we look at the time at the end of everything, it was more than 10 hours. But there was an extra model in there. And technically, I only needed to paint 9 Skitarii for my tournament list. So by the time I put down the last Skitarii model, just under 10 hours. Did I meet my prediction? No. Did I get it done in time? Yes, and I still have days to spare. I'm heading out to the tournament this weekend. It is now Tuesday as I am recording the conclusion and voiceover for this video. So I got a couple of days to relax and build anxiety over my first semi-competitive Warhammer event. But there's going to be a video on that after I attend, of course, so make sure you hit that subscribe button so you don't miss out this awesome event. I'm really excited for it, genuinely, and really excited to meet a lot of the extended Warhammer community in my area. If you like this video, be sure to give it a like and let me know in the comments. Are you faster than me? I bet you are. I mostly blame Skitarii, but at the end of the day, there is nothing to blame but myself. And I will see you guys next time. Peace!